So welcome to the panel on energy, the 2021 Virtual Shifting Season Summit. I'm going to start with some introductions here. Winikisak, Nataswis Casey Thornbrugh, Gano Thomas Masipia. Good day, everyone. My name is Casey Thornbrugh, and I'm a citizen of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, located on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I live, work, and reside in Mashpee on the homelands of my ancestors, Wampanoag. Some people kind of see the term Wampanoag. We say Wampanoag. And I'm the Tribal Climate Science Liaison with United South and Eastern Tribes, also known as USET. USET's a partner in the Shifting Season Summit, as well as a partner in the Northeast Indigenous Climate Resilience Network. And lastly, as a Tribal Climate Science Liaison, I work closely with both the Northeast and the Southeast Climate Adaptation Science Centers. Also want to introduce Ms. Emma Ardington. Emma's working with me on this panel, and she is the AmeriCorps Vista worker at the College of the Menominee Nation Sustainable Development Institute. She's worked there for over a year, working on projects related to climate change action, mitigation, including renewable energy, and addressing greenhouse gas emissions. After her AmeriCorps service ends in July, she will be pursuing an MPA in development practice at Columbia University, specializing in energy and the environment. So thank you, Emma, very much for your help in working with me on this panel. All right. Let me go ahead and dive into introducing again. I'm very excited. We have some wonderful panelists here, and I've seen their presentations. So again, really excited for what they're going to be sharing with us today. Let me start off by introducing Mr. Anthony Giacobbe. He's the director of Seneca Energy at the Seneca Nation, and he served in this role for the past 7 years. Mr. Giacobbe has experience with distributed generation projects, natural gas and electricity supply, broadband deployment, natural gas distribution, maintenance and expansion, road negotiations, rate analysis, and energy efficiency initiatives. Mr. Giacobbe has over 15 years experience in corporate strategic planning, project management, sales marketing, and policy marketing from various national corporations. He received his bachelor's degree from Clarkson University and his graduate degree in business from Canisius College. Dr. Marie Schaefer is a transdisciplinary scientist whose work focuses on braiding Indigenous knowledges and scientific knowledges using community-based participatory research approaches, in ways to understand how collaborations between knowledge systems can contribute to overall sustainable futures. Dr. Schaefer is currently a postdoctoral research associate in the Department of Community Sustainability at Michigan State University on the MICARES project. And MICARES is the Michigan Community Anishinabe Renewable Energy Sovereignty Project. This project works with 9 Michigan communities, including 3 tribal nations, to explore opportunities and create tools to overcome barriers to renewable energy in their community and nation. Dr. Schaefer has worked with tribal nations across the United States and is of Anishinabe, specifically Odawa and European settler descent. Mr. Mike Troge has been employed with Oneida Nation in Wisconsin for 25 years as an environmental projects manager. His roles include watershed manager, conservation specialist, project designer, energy planner, solar projects coordinator, and hemp program manager. Currently, he works as an energy consultant with the tribe. Mr. Troge has been in various roles in the Midwest Tribal Energy Resources Association, also known as MTERA, since its start in 2014. Currently, he's the vice chair and board member representing Oneida Nation, a member tribe of MTERA. And Mr. Robert Blake is the owner of Solar Bear, a solar installation company located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Ojibwe pronunciation is Gizis Omakwa. And I hope I got that really close. I'm an Eastern Algonquin speaker, coastal, so I want to give a shout out to my Western relations out in the Midwest. So Mr. Blake is the Executive Director of Native Son Community Power Development, a nonprofit located also in Minneapolis. He is a graduate student at the University of Minnesota Carlson Executive Master of Business Administration, CEMBA program, and he's a citizen of the Red Lake Nation. His passion is spreading the word of renewable energy, communication, through communication, cooperation, and collaboration. So again, we have some wonderful panelists here, very excited for what they have to share. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and move in for our first panelist, Mr. Anthony Giacobbe. I will pull up your presentation and share my screen. Let's see. Okay. And share screen and presentation mode. Okay, take it away.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here. Now I scano. Hello, welcome to everybody. My name is Anthony Giacobbe. I work for the Seneca Nation, and I'm the Director of Seneca Energy. Next slide, please. The Seneca Nation is located in what today is Western New York. There's 5 non-contiguous territories that you can see on this map, 2 residential, Cattaraugus and Allegheny Territory. You can see Cattaraugus has 22,000 acres and Allegheny is about 45 minutes away. So they are separated and about 31,000 acres. That can cause some challenges. We have our executives and counselors actually switch between the 2 territories. So currently our president is sitting in Cattaraugus and our clerk, and then our treasurer sits in Allegheny. And in 2 years, basically next November, we'll have an election that will switch and our president would sit in Allegheny. And we have 8 counselors that sit in each territory. And our leadership's been huge for everything that I'm going to talk about today. We have some really strong champions within our leadership group that have helped just really put our vision together and get us to where we are today. Next slide, please. The mission of Seneca Energy is to ensure the security, prosperity, and independence of the Seneca Nation by building a sustainable energy plan, lowering energy costs, and preserving the environment. We really feel the Seneca Nation has taken a progressive approach in building that impactful, sustainable energy platform. Next slide, please. This is our slide, talks about some of the framework for success, and I can't really stress some of these enough. So we had our strategic vision, really that came from our leadership a number of years ago. Casey mentioned that I've been with the Seneca Nation for about 7 years. And this vision really started even before that. Seneca Energy, putting it in place, creating an LLC, and really putting our structure in place. That all happened before 2014 when I was brought on. So our leadership, again, we couldn't do it without them. And our team development is, I have a couple team members on the call today, Wes Jackson and Tony Memo. Without them, we're not here talking about these accomplishments that we have had. They're great project managers and really strong components to our team. We also have 3 members of our natural gas team. And then we have just recently taken over the telecom division. So we have 1 employee under telecom as well. And I'll talk about some of the broadband projects that we're working on. We've made some capital investments that you'll see, and then determination being the final component where really we've had to overcome a lot of obstacles and make sure that we've just never given up, and we've pushed pretty hard on some of these projects to make sure that they've come to fruition. Next slide, please. In our strategic planning, we identified our stakeholders, again, primarily within leadership. Then we formed a leadership team. We created an energy steering committee. That committee was made up of a number of heads of different departments, and that helped us create and develop that energy vision. We assessed our needs, the resources that we have at our disposal, talked about specific goals. We created a decision matrix, something that helped us prioritize our projects. And then we've identified different financing options. We've put in our own capital, and then we've worked through a number of grants as well. And finally came up with a strategic energy plan that really helped put that roadmap together. You know, again, I think it was key for us. It took a number of years to really map out the path, how we wanted to get to where we are today. And we have plans to grow into the future. You know, we definitely are not at our final goal yet, but we'll talk about some of the accomplishments that we have had so far. The next slide, please. So when we really put our energy vision together, we came up with these pillars of really goals, I guess, if you will, and we try to tailor our projects to make sure we're hitting as many of those as possible. So sustainability, reducing costs, and you can see the others. I don't have to read them all off, but today we're talking about environmental benefits and some of how the renewable energy and the different projects we've worked on have really helped preserve Mother Earth for the future 7 generations. Workforce development, and then finally our energy information hub. 7 years ago, the energy information was spread out across a number of different organizations, departments and organizations throughout the Seneca Nation. And now we've really streamlined it where it's coming through Seneca Energy, and then it can be distributed to different departments as needed, but sort of becoming that hub for information. Next slide. So climate change, our topic of the day and topic of the week, really, being Earth Week and the summit. We've seen that the extreme events are increasing in numbers. You know, you can see some pictures here. We have snow on the ground today in Buffalo, so I don't know if that's, we can't talk about global warming maybe today, but you know, getting snow in April and having just strange weather events. But we see a lot of kind of rain bombs and heavier rainfall than we've seen in the past. We actually see less snow generally, less snow cover, and then we have snow in April. Next slide, please. So this talks about, this is from actually the NASA website, and talks about some of the different evidence that's out there. Temperature rising, the warming of the oceans, shrinking ice sheets, glacial retreat, some of the things that I mentioned, you know, being a colder climate in Buffalo. I think we're seeing some of that here. Next slide, please. Again, decreased snow cover, rising sea levels, the extreme events. I think, to me, that seems to be one of the bigger outcomes that we're seeing with the changing climate. You just, whether it's rain, you're seeing fire or snow, it's just more extreme in numbers. And then finally, ocean acidification. Next slide, please. So don't ignore the signs. This picture is from Washington State, you know, a golf course. You see a couple of people in the bottom left, they're staring at and kind of watching the fire. Then you have people that are just putting. And it's sort of, this picture kind of gets me every time. It's kind of a microcosm of just becoming complacent almost with a raging, you know, forest fire in the background. And you're kind of just still putting. So I think trying not to ignore the signs, knowing that clearly we can do more to try to avoid some of these different extreme events in the future. Next slide. So to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of our projects at the Seneca Nation. On our Cattaraugus territory, we've installed a 1.5 megawatt Ventus wind turbine. You can see we've made a pretty significant investment in that. We did receive some funds through the Department of Energy and NYSERDA as well. Our power is virtually net metered. So essentially our host account is the wind turbine itself. The production goes through a master meter. And then we actually are able to, in New York, and this is a state-by-state situation, we're able to pass the credit to satellite accounts. So we can essentially have a list of accounts that we want to credit with the power that's generated from that wind turbine. We've generated 12 million kilowatt hours so far. and a little over $1 million in revenue. So we're on path for our payback here, that you can see it's about 9 years. We installed in 2017, so it's been a few years now. Community benefits, that's one of the things that we're really proud of. We pass on some of the savings, some of the revenue generated to our residents. If you remember the two territories, Cattaraugus and Allegheny, the Cattaraugus territory has higher rates than Allegheny. Allegheny receives some hydroallocations, so they may pay 6-7 cents a kilowatt hour. In Cattaraugus, you could pay 12 to 14 cents a kilowatt hour. So that $25 a month ends up being about a 25% to 33% credit that we pass back to our residents. That's on a monthly basis. We've paid out over $450,000 so far between our projects to residents directly. So we're really proud of that. Our emission statistics, you can see how much we've produced on an annual basis, approximately how many homes that would power per year. And then the big one, again, for today and climate change, we're reducing carbon 4.3 million pounds a year, but it's like taking off 500 cars every year with the greenhouse gas emissions that we're taking away by essentially running our wind turbine versus using coal or another form of energy generation. Next slide, please. So this shows our construction, some pictures. You can see the tower being constructed. It came in 3 pieces. It's about 256 feet high, about 411 feet to the tip of the blade. We had 7 to 9 Seneca members working on the project throughout, different union, whether they're operators or laborers. We had about, again, 9 people that were Seneca members putting up our turbine. So we were really proud of that, creating those jobs. Next slide, please. The rotor fly, this is the most exciting part. You can see the nacelle on top, and they basically put all the blades on in the ground and lift it up with 2 cranes. And then there's actually, you can't really see, but there's 3 or 4 people up in that nacelle at the head of the wind turbine that essentially are literally with their hands catching that big flying rotor kind of coming at them. So that was a lot of fun to watch and an exciting day for sure. Next slide, please. Casey, is it going to the next slide?
Sorry about that. It's changing on my end, but not on everyone else's. I am looking at 200 megawatt solar array.
Okay. Yep. So I can keep going. Essentially, we have a solar project, and we hopefully will get there. There we go. 2 megawatts, again, net metered. So we're moving that credits from the power to different accounts throughout the territory. We're not using that power directly today. We worked with the Seneca Nation construction company who actually put up the modules and the racking. And we did receive some NYSERDA money for this project as well, but put in significant investment and project management from the Seneca Energy team and Nation. Next slide, please.
Okay, can you see that okay?
Didn't come through yet, but I know the pictures take a little longer.
Okay.
I think the next one might be a picture of the array.
Yes, it is.
So maybe I'll just give it 1 minute. I only have probably a couple minutes left. There we go. That's the solar array. There's 5,500 panels, 44 miles of wiring, and 49 inverters that are making up this system. Next slide, please. It's about 9 acres also.
Okay.
I know the pictures are slowing it down, I think. You can see the inverters on the left. And again, there's 49. So we have string inverters versus a centralized inverter. Big thing there is centralized inverters. They used to, an array of this size might have only had 1 or 2 inverters. And then if one went down, it would take out half your array. or your entire array potentially. So now with 49 inverters, if we lose an inverter, we're just losing, you know, a row or half a row instead of more panels. So that's kind of the benefit of the string inverters, at least one of them. Next slide.
Okay. Oh, now it's not changing on my end. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I think my next slide might be the project highlights. I think I'm getting towards the end here.
Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is just stop share for a moment. Please bear with me, and we'll go ahead and screen. Go ahead and go right to the PowerPoint. There we go. It's called the reboot there. Can everyone see that okay?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. And next slide. All right.
I think the next slide shows just some of the greenhouse gas emissions that we're reducing. So mercury vapor, carbon, sulfur dioxide, nitrous. So those are all the different greenhouse gas emissions that we are reducing. I think the slide after that talked about some of our other project highlights. So essentially, we have some other small solar arrays on our hatcheries. We have 2 hatcheries, 1 on each territory, and also on our elders facility. You could go to the next slide, Casey.
There we go.
There we go. So we have some smaller solar arrays. Oh, one more up, back, I should say. There we go. LED installations, basically all of our buildings are LED now. Energy efficiency measures, whether it's variable drive motors or motion sensors. Natural gas plugging project, we've plugged about 28 wells since in the last 7 years, and we've worked on about 8 others and just eliminated a lot of leaking fluids and things like that at the surface. So that's a big one for protecting the environment. We do have some natural gas on territory, but you know, it's cleanest burning fossil fuel, and we have replaced a lot of gas lines, repaired gas lines. So we have basically new infrastructure. At the end of this year, all of the gas lines on our Cattaraugus territory will be updated within the last few years. And that's just, again, keeping the safety, protecting the environment. So those are extremely important. Broadband projects, 2 areas of our territories that have no access at all. So we're doing a 52-mile project in Cattaraugus and a 10-mile project in Steenberg. And we're doing a microgrid feasibility study. So potentially the broadband, we might tie our generation together, you know, or new generation potentially even, with batteries and controls, and create a microgrid for our main complex on our Cattaraugus territory. Next slide, please. So times are changing. This is the Kentucky Coal Museum. It's another one I kind of like. The coal museum's putting solar on the roof. So I guess it, you know, we need a little bit more of that, but I kind of find that one sort of funny. And then the next slide. That guy certainly hopes things are changing. And I think that's all I got, Casey.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Giacobbe. And so we'll go ahead and segue over now to Dr. Schaefer. So I will stop screen share and turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Wedge, and I will attempt to screen share. All right, can you see me and can you hear me? I had to put headphones in because there's someone mowing their lawn right outside the window.
I can see your PowerPoint and hear you.
Awesome. All right, so today I'm going to talk about the MICARES project, the Michigan Community and Anishinabe Renewable Energy Sovereignty Project. So today's journey, and for some that are from the Menominee Nation might recognize this type of woods. This is from the woods, from the forest there. But we're going to talk about the project, the partners and funders, and really how it was created, and its goals and some activities, how we incorporate the medicine wheel, Anishinaabe medicine wheel, into the framework and our methodology, how we use that, and how that was created. And then talk a little bit about a white paper that we're working on with a new partner tribe. Also hopefully that'll be presented at the Michigan Climate and Clean Energy Summit that I want to invite you all to in May. And I'll have this up again, but you can go to michiganclimatecleanenergy.org to register, and there's scholarships for the registration fees. And then at the end, when everybody's done, hopefully we can have some times for questions and kind of collective wisdom sharing. So let's get started. A little bit about myself. So I am both Anishinabe, specifically Adawa, like Casey mentioned, and also European settler. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the college town. And I just graduated in August with my PhD in community sustainability. That's a little tree icon for the Department of Community Sustainability. And I was blessed to be brought in on this project as a postdoc, this MICARES project. And I've spent a number of years at the College of Menominee Nation Sustainable Development Institute, coordinating climate change research. So we did scenario planning workshops with different tribes. And I miss those woods and place a lot. And that is my mom in the bottom right, Karen. That's with her first winnowing basket, which we use for ricing, which is what is behind me. Manuman is behind me because it's a great lesson, a great teacher, and a great gift. And it's nice to have it here. And a lot of what I do in my work overall, like Casey mentioned, is braiding, kind of that way that Robin Kimmer talks about it, braiding Indigenous knowledges and scientific knowledges to work on different issues like climate change. So it's a little bit about myself, and I did want to do a land acknowledgement because where I'm at MSU at Michigan State University, I always want to keep them accountable and just keep the pressure on, so to speak. So I will do a little bit of that right now. So we collectively acknowledge that MSU occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, the Three Fires Confederacy of the Ojibwe, Adawa, and Potawatomi peoples. And by the way, this was created by the American Indian Indigenous Studies program at MSU in conversation with others. In particular, the university resides on land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Indigenous nations, for historic Indigenous communities in Michigan, for Indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and work darn hard to hold MSU more accountable to the needs of American Indian Indigenous peoples. And I work on that every day. So getting into the MICARES, our Michigan Community Anishinabe Renewable Energy Sovereignty Project, which is a mouthful. So these are the partners that created this project. It's a National Science Foundation 5-year grant, or NSF. But at the table to create the design of the MICARES project was the Giacobbe Indian community, the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities, which is based in Traverse City, Michigan, if you know where that is, and Michigan Technological University, or Michigan Tech, and Michigan State University, or MSU. And that's the group, our wonderful partners. It's a large team, but a great team that put together what we do. And how we put this together was we used a lot of Indigenous protocols and research, and also community-based participatory action research and approaches. So it was community-led. We had our partners sitting at the table. And this is kind of a research protocol, but this is really how we created the methods that we use for this project. So we had Giacobbe Indian Community and Sioux Tribe, Michigan Sioux Tribe, not the other one, sitting at the table working with us to create a research design that makes sense for them and for us. And while you can have, when I train different scientists, I have this, while you can have your own interests, so the scientists that are non-native at the table, you can have your own interests, but the community gets to shape what is going to happen and have the final say, so it benefits those communities and nations. And so timelines can be different, but you have to communicate clearly. So we've had, different academic publications that wanted to come out, but we, for different reasons, and needed to have some communication, or reporting back to NSF and needing to have communication about how to do that in a good way. And at the end of the day, it really is all about building relationships and building trust and reciprocity as you do that, and as we did that. So those are the kind of principles that we use to create this project. And really our goals for the project is to learn from communities and nations, tribal nations in Michigan, and really make sure that each of these communities and nations' unique social and cultural values are prioritized in energy planning processes. And so how we go about doing that is really acting as a technical resource. So we have people on the team, it's a large team, it's 25 people. So we have everything from engineers to social scientists to, like, you can think of something related to energy sovereignty. We have someone on the team related to that expertise, including knowledge holders. So it's a really robust team, and we act as a resource, and we have other networks that we're connected to really kind of try and understand what is going on with the opportunities and barriers for these communities and nations regarding renewable energy, and then try and figure out how to remove those barriers and really implement best practices to transition the communities and nations to local control of the systems, ideally that energy sovereignty. If that's what their goals are, sometimes we need to meet people where they're at. And so I mentioned before that we used the medicine wheel. These are just a sample of some of the teachings that we used. But so for our Anishinabe tribal nations, the Sioux and Keweenaw, helped create this idea of thinking about how we would go about doing this work of looking at renewable energy in what is now Michigan, and using the medicine wheel as that way of thinking about it. So the medicine wheel helps us understand this philosophy of being in balance between and among time, space, and all beings, and it's really interconnected. So, and there's 4 equal directions with new beginnings beginning in the east, and the medicine wheel really shows us how human society is in a permanent state of transition as the wheel doesn't end. So these are just, I know there's lots of different teachings in our communities, and this is just a sample of the teachings that we had to create this framework. And then how do we use this medicine wheel? You notice that there's different writings on it, and RQ 4.1 and different things like that. So we use this framework when we're working with different communities to really have conversations with the community or nation about what do they care about? What are the core values as a community or society? So we start in the East, and then how do these values influence social choices regarding research, design, policy, innovation, implementation? And then we go on and have conversations and work out, what do we know currently? What is going on in the community regarding renewable energy? Kind of a baseline assessment. And then where are the gaps in knowledge in order? Maybe people don't know. Maybe we need to do an assessment. Tribal staff is many times overworked, and so hopefully we're providing some labor to take some things off of their plate. So maybe we don't know what we know. So maybe we need to have an assessment of that, and then have conversations about what is possible. What do we need to get to where the community wants to go, and then what should we do about it together? Sometimes it's just that we're providing resources. Sometimes we are, having conversations like what was just talked about like having a community solar project, or so many different options, but it's figuring out what is appropriate, what the community wants, and what's going to benefit them. And then this, I really like this diagram. It's from a BIA travel utility white paper, basically. But one of the ways that we're going about this is working with a new partner tribe. They have their own substation and tribal utility. We're creating this white paper with them to describe the process of the process they went through to get that substation. And then hopefully we can take that process and make a tool, a decision-making tool, or a flow chart, basically, to say, hey, if you are another tribal nation, if you want to go through this process of getting a substation or tribal utility, and I know MTerra does a lot of this work too. It's just one that, and we're hoping to work closer with MTerra on some things too. But just what is the process? What is each step along the way? What are the lessons that we can learn? And this is a little bit different work than kind of on the ground figuring out, different renewable projects that a tribe needs. This is kind of the lessons learned side of it that we're currently doing with one tribe. And it's pretty exciting because if they've gone ahead and learned a lot of lessons. So if we can get some best practices out of that, and somebody doesn't have to make the same mistakes. And it's also really exciting to see a tribe have their own utility. That to me is amazing. That is sovereignty right there. So if others can learn from that and get their own energy sovereignty, I think that's the direction that is really exciting to see. And so we're working on that white paper right now, and hopefully we'll be able to have a draft of it and that decision-making tool, that kind of flow chart of all the steps, the path, at this Michigan Clean Energy Summit, May 24th through 27th. So please register. If you have any issues with registration, let me know. There is some fees, but if you need any scholarships, there's definitely scholarships for the registration fee, and the early bird registration rates are ending on the 24th. So miigwech, and I look forward to having some conversations during the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. And I'll segue over to Mr. Mike Troge, and I will pull up the PDF version, your presentation, and share my screen. Let me go ahead and do that. And we'll do share screen. Share. And we'll go to view.
Well, thanks, Casey. Am I in?
You're on. Take it away.
Okay. Thanks, Casey. Thanks, Marie and Anthony, for the previous presentations. Very interesting stuff. And I'd love to have a chat with you, Marie and Anthony, about some of the work we might be able to do in the future. So, Giacobbe,
sure.
Good. Excellent. Giacobbe, good day. My name is Mike Troge, energy consultant for Oneida Nation and a board member of Midwest Tribal Energy Resources Association. I'll call that MTerra throughout the presentation. Thank you to the organizers of shifting seasons for the energy panel and allowing me to speak on this important topic. I'll talk a little bit about Oneida's experience and talk about some of MTerra's work as well. Next slide, yeah. So very few people like this slide. I don't know why. It does look like a plate of spaghetti, but I thought I'd just get this out of the way early and we don't have to deal with it anymore, but it's an important slide. It's an important graph. It's produced by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and it shows the flow of energy from source to use in the US. Line thickness represents energy quantity. Boxes along the left are energy sources. The brown box on top shows the energy it takes to create electricity, of which we all use. The pink boxes show the end users, but the most important box is the gray box on the right. That's rejected energy or wasted energy. That's one of the main reasons we have a climate crisis today and why we're attending this conference. 2/3 of the energy we produce ends up being released through inefficiencies in the system, the whole energy system. We can also further, with this data, be able to determine that the US, with 5% of the global population, uses 20% of the energy that is generated worldwide. So we really do take energy for granted. Next slide, please. Cheap and convenient has been the apex of energy planning for decades. Unfortunately, we fail to consider the consequences. Using data like that on the previous picture, it's easy to justify why an energy plan is so important to pursue. I think the bottom line in response to the climate crisis and other failing systems around the world is that we need to invest in clean and responsible energy with a preference toward local production. That will require a paradigm shift that away from how we've viewed energy in the past. And it's proving to be a hard transition. Next slide, please. The steps are pretty basic for the energy planning process. You can start by monitoring your energy consumption. This can happen at any level, from the home scale to global wide. There are many tools to help people and organizations track their energy use. WeGoWise is one website tool that MTerra has evaluated. And WeGoWise uploads the utility information and then are able to display it using graphs and other ways to help with interpretation of data. And then that will help somebody determine which buildings are efficient and which buildings are inefficient, and being able to put priorities together from there. Next slide, please. At the tribal nation scale, the energy assessment will let you rank and prioritize your buildings and the projects that have to happen within those buildings. It's no surprise that casinos are very often the biggest users, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're the most inefficient buildings. Next slide, please. You can usually find the inefficiencies after an energy assessment is completed. Lighting is often a big one. In Oneida, facility electricians have prioritized the replacement of old technology with the new technology. Incandescents were replaced by CFLs, which were again replaced by LEDs. This all happened just the last 15 years or so. LED light emitting diode is the future in lighting, and at least for now it is. Who knows what will show up here 5-10 years from now. Next slide, please. My work in Oneida has primarily been with renewable energy production. We've been pretty successful with research and development, as well as deployment of solar electric and solar hot water. There were plenty of learning opportunities as well. Oneida's energy team was organized about 12 years ago, and it was good to be able to open up with open up on many of these issues with other staff that deal with energy on a daily basis as well. So this is an example of shows some lighting upgrades that we've done to buildings. We've investigated an energy crop using switchgrass. Oneida is a pretty heavy agricultural tribe, and so some of that acreage might be able to be transitioned into an energy crop. It's a solar hot water system on our recently constructed, 2014 constructed nursing home. The project below, that's a portion of the larger project, but there's a solar electric on that building as well. Biomass energy is an opportunity that we might be able to use some of our energy crop to help heat homes or other facilities. And we did put an anemometer up a few years ago. Don't have quite the wind resource that some other places do, so Hooray for Seneca and their work over there on wind power. Next slide, please. The most effective way for tribes to improve energy use is to address energy inefficiencies, so lighting and things like that. After that, tribes can look at local production opportunities. Solar and wind come to mind for most people, but there are often hidden opportunities that can present themselves. Biomass is an example. These opportunities should be revealed with the clean energy creation of a clean energy plan. Eventually, after you get a handle on the current situation, you can start creating goals. Something called the Renewable Portfolio Standard that has been adopted by many organizations. Here's on this slide, here's an example where a tribe can set a goal of 5, 10, or 20% of their energy to come from renewable sources. But these are not easy goals to really make. There's a lot of considerations as far as where the energy is coming from, how much efficiency in buildings can you address, and those types of issues. Next slide, please. There are partners such as MTerra, Department of Energy, National Renewable Energy Laboratory that can help tribes develop their strategic energy plans. This figure shows the typical steps that one may follow. Anthony had a similar slide. 1 or 2 years of planning should be sufficient, but there are many considerations, and the process can take years of commitment as wavering or other factors get in the way. I put Oneida, go back one slide. Oneida is right about here, but it's mushy as far as they're kind of they might achieve something at number 1, then they'll jump to number 3, and then they'll go to number 7. So it's kind of we're constantly addressing how the energy plan should be formatted and how things should be fit into it to streamline the process. So it's a work in progress. Next slide, please. Oneida Nation was due to have their strategic energy plan revised from the result of a 2010 plan creation. In about 2019, that's where we started the process again to bring together some tribal folks, some facility folks. We had Department of Energy, we had National Renewable Energy Laboratory, we had MTerra present to help work through the process. These were some of the preliminary goals that we came up with. Probably the big one is to be a net zero community, essentially meaning that all energy that we use after efficiencies will essentially come from renewable energy sources. It's not an easy feat. It's easier to try and accomplish that for smaller, maybe a building or a neighborhood or something like that. To do it at tribal wide or any organization is pretty challenging to try and achieve. But I know there's a lot of tribes around the country that have that as one of their ideal situations to be in. Next slide, please. Oneida Nation has adopted a climate change resolution to endorse terms of the Paris Climate Agreement. I think you should make no mistake, the kinds of changes that need to happen that support the Paris climate change will be an increasing challenge the longer we wait or hold off on these things. It's interesting, I'm part of the Wisconsin Clean Energy Plan process right now. That they're putting a clean energy plan together under the current administration. And they're doing a bunch of modeling based on some of the policy changes that we're trying to recommend to the governor and to the people in charge, essentially. And it's interesting, we base our modeling on the goals set by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And it's going to take a big effort early in the process to meet the kind of changes that they require, or that they're recommending to limit temperature increases and so forth. So it'll be an interesting decade for certain. Something that we should have started 30 years ago. Next slide, please. These are just a few examples of some of the solar electric work that we did on a few of our buildings. This is on the Anajon. So this is the panels on the roof, and then these are the inverters in the lower right corner. They convert the DC power to AC power that the grid can use. Next slide. This is just another view of that array, including the solar hot water panels. That's a 48 collector system. It's been operating pretty well. We've got monitoring for all of these systems as well. We can basically log into the website and track how the systems are performing. This is the lower right corner is the aerial view of the solar panels as well as the solar hot water for our Anajon nursing home, Anajon Resident Centered Care Community. Next slide, please. It's important for the people, boots on the ground, essentially, to be a part of these efforts as we transition into this clean energy situation. Certainly, training is a big thing that we need to provide for a number of communities, tribal communities, as well as those communities that are starting to transition away from the coal-fired power plant in their backyard, where they've been working for years or decades. So training is a big thing that we really need to push here in the nation, across the nation. The upper right project, upper left project was an interesting one. That's where we brought in preparation for our electricians, both our facilities and gaming electricians, to be prepared when essentially we assume control of the big solar array that has been constructed across a number of facilities. Eventually, they're going to have to learn how to maintain it and so forth. This was an opportunity to do some work, some maintenance work on this system this array that was constructed about 20 years ago. And it was interesting also, it was one of the few times that our gaming and our facilities electricians actually work together. There's such a separation in the different work that they do that often they don't cross paths. But that was a good opportunity, a good project to be a part of. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to transition to a conversation about MTerra. It's a mission to empower Midwest tribes to manage energy resources through collective action. Collective action implies a certain amount of partnership and interdependency. We generally don't promote don't like dependence. However, independence may be something that isn't sustainable as well. We still have to work together to achieve a level of stability. MTerra was founded in 2014 to help with these questions. And with the help of the Department of Energy grant, we were able to transform how we provide services to member tribes. And I need to mention that our virtual conference is scheduled for next week. Please review the agenda and register at www.mterraconference.org. And we appreciate your early participation. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a linear view of how the current energy system works across the country. tribes are really nothing more than a customer to a lot of these governing energy agencies, and that's something that MTERA is out to change. Next slide, please. This is just a quick list of items that I thought defined energy sovereignty, and I imagine these presentations will be available, so please feel free to review those and come up with your own items to include on that list. Next slide, please. This is MTERA's vision. So kind of a similar to the energy planning process that we showed earlier, formatted a little bit differently. We want each tribe to have a tribal vision, work with their tribal members, implement that into their tribal governance, create the tribal energy plan. If there's an opportunity for a collective vision with other tribes in the Midwest, and this could expand across the nation as well, and that's the opportunity for that interdependence, where we're not necessarily our own little silos producing our own energy and using our own energy. We're able to do some partnerships across regions as well. So that's something that MTERA is striving for. Next slide, please. This is a spectrum of where tribes fall. Some are passive, some are very innovative, but most of them fall in between. We're trying to promote tribes to be more active and innovative in how they manage their energy. Next slide. 13-member tribes currently. We have a pretty typical organizational structure. We have member tribes. On top, a board of directors, which is essentially representatives from each member tribe. They get together on a monthly basis. Plus, there's various committees and other project opportunities to get together much more often, actually. There's an executive committee, 4 officers, as well as an executive director that kind of runs the show. Jake Glavin has been doing a wonderful job helping to lead the organization. Next slide, please. Real quickly, part of what we're doing using the Department of Energy funds for, we've been able to participate in a number of member projects, providing them a modest grant amount to help them pursue various activities. Leech Lake for natural gas strategic planning, Oneida Nation maintenance work, Saginaw Chippewa and their utility regulatory support, White Earth Nation solar study. We're involved with a number of collective action projects, Tribal Solar Initiative. This is in partnership with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And it's essentially about reducing regulatory barriers to prevent solar deployment. Next slide, please. And then another collective action project. Some of you are aware or heard of the Tribal Utility Authority. This is an opportunity for MTERA or maybe individual tribes to actually be more innovative and active on how they manage their resources, produce their resources, deploy their resources, and being able to actively engage in the actual energy industry. How basically doing the same thing that utilities do or come close to it. Next slide. I believe this meant my last slide. Just a number of other initiatives that we're working toward. Some of you may not know that the Great Lakes region is involved in a clean energy transition planning process right now. I think some folks in Michigan are really leading that process. There's interconnection standards in Wisconsin, for example. We're also doing a propane study to see if there's a buying opportunity for tribes to come together and do some work, being able to essentially lower the price of propane, microgrid research and development, energy audit strategies, and again, learn more about this at our virtual conference next week. And I think I'm done.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mike Troge. So going ahead and share my screen now for Mr. Robert Blake. Let me go ahead and pull your presentation up. I'll also pull up the, there we go. And we'll go ahead and this screen. There we go. All right. And you're good to go.
Say, Casey, why don't you just click through these like every 10 seconds and just we'll run through it real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, thanks everyone. Miigwech everyone for having me here today. Good to be here amongst everyone else. Just going to talk a little bit about what I really do believe everyone's kind of essentially kind of talked about everything that I kind of wanted to say too. But for the most part, though, I worked for Ameriprise Financial, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank. So what I do know is that if you don't have the financing for projects, you can't get things done, and that's the bottom line. So you need financing, and so I just want to remind everybody that May 5th, Department of Energy is having their energy financing roundtable. So everyone, please look into that. I really do believe that that's something that all tribes need to be taking a look into. And one of the things also is that I get asked to be on a lot of these different conferences and get-togethers here. And I just want to say too that I really hope that Deb Holland and the Department of the Interior and that climate group that they got there, put some money aside that we can start forming energy vision advisory committees, for tribal nations, and then that they go ahead and help finance that for tribal nations. Because what I see around the country, and as I do these webinars with everyone, it all looks like it starts at planning, right? And so I believe that an EVAC committee can really be crucial to everyone's initial planning. And I really did like Marie's, whole thing about including the community. I mean, I believe that's so important. I always have the phrase, nothing without us, nothing about us without us, right? That was from Peggy Flanagan over here in Minnesota. And I really do believe that. And so the other part is, equity, right? I'm in Minnesota, so I'm in the Twin Cities. We've got a lot of things going on here right now around equity. Obviously, we're in the national news right now, world news right now, concerning equity. But, I really do believe that what we're doing here around energy and energy sovereignty really speaks to social, economic, and justice. I always think about what Martin Luther King said when he says, "I can't have social justice without economic justice." Well, I mean, that's what we're doing here with these energy projects. I'm sorry, and I missed environmental justice. So we've got three levels that we're hitting here, and I think that MLK would be just like, this is what his dream was, for us to be able to be doing these projects like this. And so anyways, I really do believe that that what we're doing here, creating these tribal utilities, creating these tribal energy sovereignty projects, is really important to our community. Not only for that, but workforce development, and just the idea of just like, it really speaks to our whole native mindset of taking care of the earth and taking care of Mother Earth. So I just want to say that I think that that's important. And as I've been installing solar And as I've been working with my own community members, they have come up to me and they have said, Bob, that I love doing this job. I mean, I love that the fact that we're doing something for the community. I love the fact that we're doing something for the planet, and just all around, like this just makes me feel good. And I knew that I was onto something when I had like 10 of my 10 guys from the community there show up at 7 a.m. And I was looking around and I said to myself, hey man, I'm onto something. Like, these guys are here at 7 a.m. to install solar. I mean, this is, there's something else happening here. So, which led me down to the road of purpose, right? I do believe that, this is about purpose. And that's why I believe that these renewable energy projects are so important to tribal country. And I just really hope that, we can all work together. The other part about this too is, this is about policy, right? Mike talked about it in one of his slides. And I mean, over here in Minnesota, one thing that we've got working right now is we're trying to create a tribal energy group, right? A tribal energy energy planning group with the state of Minnesota. And Representative Jamie Becker Finn, who is actually from Leech Lake tribe, has been putting that into the state's plan, into the state's energy plan. And I think that's really exciting, because I believe that then that lays the groundwork, right? I believe that lays the groundwork for a tribal utilities commission. And so what I would hope to see in the future is that our tribes all have our own tribal utilities, which then we can create our own tribal utilities commission. We'll act in conjunction with the Public Utilities Commission. So when we talk about Line 3, when we talk about Line 5, when we talk about pipelines, the DAPL movement, I mean, we're that clearing, or that allowing of those pipelines to be built, are really going to have to be approved also by the Tribal Utilities Commission. So I want to go back to someone that everyone remembers, John Trudell. I remember John Trudell saying, we got to beat them with our mind. And I believe that that's where we're at. We got to beat them with our mind. And we are the only people in this country that have this unique relationship with the federal government. And, we have to do this not only for, I believe, for, everyone on Turtle Island, but I believe for everybody in the United States. So I always say, when the federal government and state governments fail us, tribal governments have to step up and speak up for everyone. And I believe that's where we're at right now with climate change. I remember the guy from the Seneca slideshow was talking about, a climate change and whatnot. And this is real. And basically that's what we're doing here in Red Lake, is we're creating a distributed energy resource, or distributed energy resources. So renewable energy, throughout the entire reservation, 17 megawatts of renewable energy, creating our own utility. And I believe that this is the future. And I believe that tribal nations are going to be able to, have their own crews, linemen, electricians, and especially with their inclement weather and the way that is going to basically be taking out power lines and whatnot, we're going to have our people trained up to do these jobs and do this work, not relying on the outside. So I really love Marie when she talked about, and Mike when he talked about energy sovereignty and us taking control of our own energy process. So, I believe also too that, like, just the opportunities around workforce development, energy efficiency, net zero homes. Another one of the things that, I also want to ask of the Department of the Interior and Deb and those guys out there in Washington is, they have these things called renewable energy zones in Australia. And, I believe that tribal nations are set up very nicely to be classified as renewable energy zones. And I like the acronym for this, RES, R-E-Z. So I believe that it speaks perfectly with what tribal nations and what we're all doing. So I would really like to see that happen for tribal nations, and that we be classified as renewable energy zones. I've been very involved and very excited about being a part of all this renewable energy that we're doing in Red Lake. I created my company Solar Bear off of this. Gizi Somakwa, that's how you say it, Casey. It's just been a great opportunity to put some of the community members to work, and also be able to do a lot of the things that I've been able to do. Create also my nonprofit, which is called Native Sun. There's my contact info, everybody. You can definitely reach me, talk to me, and you can all have this PowerPoint. And I wanted to rush through it because I know that we're short on time. So thank you, everybody. Miigwech. And Casey, I'm going to send it back to you for some Q&A.
Awesome. Top touch. Thank you very much. And for all your presentations.